Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. You're listening to Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. Today, I'm speaking to Dr. Kim Nugent, author of From Prison to Possibilities. And Dr. Kim and I are going to be speaking on the topic creating a plan for incarcerated individuals outside of prison. Welcome, Dr. Kim.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yes, excited to have this conversation and share this very important topic. Yes. All right. So let me give you guys a brief synopsis of the book From Prison to Possibility. It is a book about paving your path by Dr. Kim Nugent that acts as a 6-month pre-release curriculum and post-release guide for incarcerated individuals preparing for life outside of prison. This book aims to reduce recidivism, I probably said that wrong, by helping users create a plan for successful reintegration into society by addressing challenges like finding housing and employment, rebuilding relationships, and developing new life skills. So important and such important work. One of the bad things about our society that I feel, and especially my community, is that we throw people in prison, and when they come out, they can't get jobs, so they have to go back in. The relationships. I mean, nobody even think about the relationships that were broken because they were not able to see their children or their relationships with their girlfriends and wives and things like that. And developing new life skills. Yes. If you're not going to rescind it or however that word is, then you need to learn some new things. So it's it's a great conversation. So one of the first questions I have here, Dr. Kim, is what are some ways that inmates can prepare for release while they're still incarcerated?
So, about 50% of the prisons in the United States have programming. And so, programming can consist of anything from a GED program to certification to spiritually based classes, Bible studies, things like that. There's a lot of great religious ministries going into prisons and truly making a profound difference. In my belief, and this is only my belief, but I think you probably share it, is that I don't think real change can happen until spiritual transformation has happened. That's in whatever spirit is, whatever you call that. So that's the first thing. But when that happens specifically is where I have seen amazing things happen is that when they take advantage of programs, regardless of whose program it is, whether it's internal or external or whatever it is, and they apply those principles, there is real transformation happening.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you're very right. I mean, I think that the spiritual part is working on that person, internal, and you're very right. I mean, it is very interesting that a lot of people don't know the difference between change and transformation. And even though this is my field, I wasn't acutely conscious of the difference until I heard my pastor preach on it. Like you change, you pretend to change for like 30 days, 6 months or something. But real transformation is forever because you're transforming, which is why we're talking about transformation and transforming your mind. Prisoners can go through a program and they pretend to change, but it isn't really change. So, yeah, the spiritual based programs are, trying to change the person. But I thought that, what your work is doing is actually preparing them for a different life that doesn't include crime, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely correct. And I say it, this is not my saying, but when people know better, they do better. And they prove that out every single day, and which to me is the most inspiring part.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, some of the things that you cover, you have a book that covers a 28-week plan after release. So, but some of the things you talk about in the intro and the book is talking about finding food and shelter, securing employment, managing finances. Those are things that are, well, we can put them under the term life skills. It's not has anything to do with your personally and your character. So let's talk about some of the ways that you help them with those particular things.
So the program is a very comprehensive curriculum for 28 weeks. And actually, most of the program is really all about changing behavior and specifically the soft skills. So, you and I are going to want somebody who we want to work with. That's every day, no matter what organization or, company you work for, is that we want, there are certain attributes that we want. So we go to work on that, first of all. And so, with regards to how does that program start, you would think that these guys know each other. It is a mentorship program, and a mentor has actually four mentees, and they go through the curriculum together. So the mentor is helping learn and facilitate a conversation. On the other hand, when they first that week one, they have got to get to know each other. So we have a getting to know you guide, just like in anything else, but it is very um, scripted, if you will. There are questions, but it's really helpful to just be able to begin to understand differences about people and how they think and how they learn and those kinds of things. And then from there, we go into really having them do a deep dive. It's a self-reflection activity, and they do come and report out about one thing that made a difference for them, but it's really character strengths. So, there's a self-assessment in there related to character strengths with regards to, of the seven things that we're really talking about, which one do you really feel like you excel and which one is a place where you're still working? And so they get to talk about that and they read about it and then they think about, where do I need to go, which is helpful to be able to kind of go through the next 26 weeks. So in week 3, this is one of my favorite weeks, is because the topic is actually attitude. So, when you think about it, do you have a positive attitude? Do you have a negative attitude? Or maybe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in your real world, you're awesome. But by Thursday and Friday, you're tired and like the real person comes out, the energy vampire, as John Gordon likes to say. So, one of the exercises, and they read about a page and a half each week, and then they have a set of questions as a mentee they have to complete. And then the mentor has a different set of questions. So they're coming prepared to the meeting itself. And they have a discussion. And what's great is that over time, they really begin to trust one another. They get to talk about things they never talk about in prison. I can assure you of that. But I always tell them, when they do the assignments for attitude, I say, if you're really brave and you accept this, I want you to interview 5 people. It could be, a teacher, it could be the chaplain, it could be assistant warden, it could be a pod mate. But if you're really brave, you'll call home. And then somebody at home is going to tell you how it really is.
Someone is at home is going to tell them about their attitude before
Yes.
they went into prison. Right.
Yes. And so what's really great about that, that's actionable feedback.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because, if I ask you, hey, I'm working on an assignment and I'm supposed to interview people about my attitude, can you give me some feedback? And you go, no, Kim, you're awesome. I can't do anything with that. So I have to come back and ask a clarifying question or an additional question to say, okay, give me an example when I'm not.
mm-hmm,
And then tell me about that. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to uncover these blind spots. And the whole book is really designed to uncover blind spots. And we all have them. I don't care if you're in prison or outside of prison, we all need somebody else to help us kind of go through this journey if we want to continue to improve.
mm-hmm.
So, and then when we get through the 26 weeks, so we do things like behavior, communication, decision making, finance, and the things that you mentioned, yes, but it's at the very end of the book. So we have to have a very strong foundation first, because if I have a checklist about the things I'm supposed to do when I get out, nice, not helpful, but nice, and so this program actually integrates many things, which is very different than most programming. What I mean by that is, and there's good programs out there. There are very good programs, but some programs just focus on reentry. And so they're working on the sort of the paperwork, if you will. okay, I need to have all these documents and I need to start thinking about where am I living and who's going to hire me and all that kind of stuff. That's okay. But if I haven't changed my behavior, that is definitely the opportunity to come right back because we haven't done a deep dive in terms of real change.
Okay, yeah, so I understand that. Yeah, because I get you. So the program is working with the person and working with making make sure, they understand what are the behaviors that got them here and what are the behaviors they have to change. So, I mean, we started off talking with transforming your mind. So this is perfect. But I also wanted to give our listeners some tangible information. So let's go back to addressing the challenge, like finding housing. If someone is getting out of prison, what are some of the steps that they need to do to find housing if they don't have a place to live?
So, great question. Depends. So, depends means depends on how they leave prison. So, some people are under parole, and that they actually, as part of parole, in some cases, there is a prescribed housing that they must go to. For other people, they go wherever they want to go, right? And so one of the things that's really challenging is because we're talking about people across the United States. So I could be an expert in a couple of states, right? But I will tell you there's a fantastic man out there, and he's got a program to be able to help people who are released. And his name is Cardell Sims. Kardell Sims, SIMMS.com. And if you go there, what's really great is he was formerly incarcerated. He's been out for quite some time and he's built an amazing resource for people to access those resources absolutely for free. And they offer mentorship post release. And that's what you want. You want somebody who can help you find the way. Now, that sounds great. And so let's pretend it's me. I just got out. I might not have a cell phone. I might not have a computer. I could go into all the things I don't have. Now, assuming that I have a place, a former place, some place to live, then my first place I need to go to probably is the library to start to figure out stuff because, you said employment, again, easier said than done. I need an email address and I need a phone number. I mean, we really have to take it step by step by step to understand you got to have all that. So, in the very back of the book, there is a checklist of all the things you need to consider. But then, in the kind of towards 75% of the end of it, then what happens is we actually have all the career development tools, all the basic things. And one of the fun things I like to do, because I did it at the university when I was there with my students, and I see inmates or residents, depending on the terminology you want to use, I see them as my students. I get super excited to see them and the progress they're making and what they're learning when the light bulb goes on. So when we get towards the end of the training, I'll have them stand up and I'll have them line up and look at each other. And then I'll say, okay, I want everybody to practice your handshake. And so then we sit down and really debrief about what was that experience like? Does everyone have the same handshake? No. What did you notice? And I said, in that moment, you're making either a positive impression or a negative impression. So little things and big things make a big difference. So it's all of those things kind of put together so that they have a realistic, this is not a sugar coated, a realistic plan. And I always tell them, if you think it's hard in here, it is so much harder out there.
Wow. Well, you just brought up something that I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, wow. So you're telling me that prisons let people out and they don't give them access to a cell phone or an email address or anything like that. They just forget that, I'm going through your program. I mean, the isn't part of the government um, supposed to do things like that to help people integrate back into society, especially if they've been there for a long time. They have this way of giving out 20-year sentences. I mean, you come out of prison after 15 years. I mean, what did they do for you?
So I can't really speak to your comment necessarily, but I will. So I haven't seen what you're talking about. Let's say it that way. They're not going to be handing them a cell phone, that's for sure. However, having said that, I think that there are
What about an
ways.
email address?
To my knowledge, not, but
No.
that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Okay.
So in some prisons, they actually have someone who is accountable for kind of I'm going to say getting somebody ready post release. And they
Right.
do try to help them get some of the paperwork that is very much necessary. And again, depending on how great that person is, they can also give them additional tools and resources and things like that. But there is a fantastic, I'm going to give lots of resources today that are not mine, but I'm all about sharing.
Right.
So there is a great website called honestjobs.com. And the reason I like them, they're relatively new in the last few years. And the reason I like them so much is they've already vetted all the employers and they know they're going to hire second chance.
Mm,
It's a
I
second
like
chance
that.
employer. And
Okay.
that's so much better than going to LinkedIn because you're going to get probably a lot of no, 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 no. And, we want to set people up for success.
Okay. All right. But yeah, but you just mentioned the basic things, right? Somebody's got to email you or somebody's got to call you. So, they don't even have, I mean, in the olden days, you'll see somebody's, hanging out by a phone booth. We don't even have those anymore. So those are some of the things. So it's great to have. One reason I want to have this conversation, that it's very true that, these are things that we've got to think about. Hopefully, and that's hopefully, someone that's getting out of prison at least has got a sponsor, someone that, they can use their phone, they can use their house, or they can live with them until they get on their feet, and then I mean, I'm assuming that the prison has, a job thing that they can apply, because I've seen it. You know, when you're out of work, there is, the places that you can go to and scan for jobs and apply for them. I'm in Florida and they have those programs, not
Mhm,
necessarily for people that have coming out of prison, but for anybody that's, doesn't have a job, right? So they go in
mhm.
there and they scan for jobs and they apply, and they help you. So, but yeah, okay. So
And
yeah,
there
I
are
mean,
and there are plenty of program. I mean, prisons are really good, I think, about, depending on the focus, but they're really good about giving reentry resources for sure. Now,
yeah,
that's trickier than said than done. So because one of the things is that hopefully they have a family member who will
yeah,
come pick them up. Hopefully
mhm,
that family member will allow them to use a cell phone and how to
right,
navigate that. But you said something so important a minute ago, which is let's kind of play something out you just said. So let's pretend a person has been in prison for 15, 30, 40 years, just say.
hmm,
So if you think about for a minute how much our world has changed
yep,
in the last few years, social media, computer, AI. So that's kind of big stuff, right? And we go, oh, yeah, 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 they can catch up. No, 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 no. Something as simple as going to put gasoline in the car. Self-service was not the thing then.
right,
Going to an ATM was not the thing then. I
right,
mean, I could going to a grocery store and checking yourself out. That was not a thing. And so if you start to multiply all that, we're talking about having to learn so much so fast in a world that doesn't have a whole lot of patience, but it is very overwhelming. So in one of my chapters, it's called New Media Literacy. I introduced the topic of some of the changes specifically that have happened in the last 15 years. They will not be experts for any, it's just like here's what the
yeah,
world you're going to be
awareness.
walking into
Yeah,
to
awareness instead of they're shocked. I've seen lots of movies where people come out, and that's where I'm picking this up from. I've seen lots of movies that the people have been in prison for a while and the world has changed. Cars, the whole thing, when they went in there, maybe there was just buses. Now everybody's driving, and I mean, yeah, it's a totally different world. Cell phones, I mean, yeah, I mean, so they've got to understand, how to use these things, computers. I mean, they probably even never worked a computer. So yeah, so I'm thinking that the prisons will have someone, like when you're in school, there's like a guidance counselor that helps you get a job. And I'm assuming that the prison system has something like that, and they just don't throw them to the wolves. So that's where I'm
about
coming from. Right.
so I'll challenge the assumption. So what you said is true for about 50% of the prisons.
Wow. And that's in certain states, I'm assuming, that have some kind of laws on this. or
I
just
don't know that
50% safe?
necessarily. It depends on if it's privately run or if it's a, publicly run kind of
Mm,
thing. It also, for me, regardless, it always comes down to leadership. So what I mean by that is you get a sense of what's really happening by the warden, the assistant warden, programming warden. You really get a sense of who are they and what do they want to accomplish. Now, number one is always safety, as it should be. For sure. Safety and security, number one. And then
mhm,
after that gets taken care of, then what are the capabilities of that prison? Because it also requires resources, and
yeah.
so resources are scarce. So we want to be really careful. We
Yeah.
need to know that we can measure whatever we're doing, we need to measure it to show impact.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. But again, I love having these conversations because it brings awareness. It brings awareness to something that people take for granted, right? We all know, I mean, I know that when, they come out of prison, then they can't get jobs, which is why they go back because they go back to crime. In my city, we had something where we petitioned for the question, do you have a criminal record, to be removed from job applications? Because if you check it, they don't call you. And if you lie, then, I don't know, they kick you out or whatever when they do the background check. But yeah,
Hmm.
we have petitioned the city to remove it because yeah, I mean, and even for housing, I mean, I know that there's some women that can't qualify for HUD because they've got a criminal record. So we know that these things in place that affects you when you have a criminal record. So I'm glad that you have a program that helps people address these issues. And so we talked about housing, we talk about employment. How does your book help about building relationships?
Oh, goodness sakes. It's all about building relationships. So I could tell you story after story, but I will tell you what happens typically is so the mentors and the mentees are in small groups or meeting weekly. If they're fortunate enough to be in the same pod, if you will, they can continue those conversations all the time. And that typically is what happens. But once they start learning things, it doesn't stop there. So they start changing the conversation at home.
Mm,
And now we're changing the perception of what they think that person was now that they're really growing and developing and they're not that same person. That person is the family is hearing it differently over time. So that's a big piece of it. I can tell you, and I have some examples around that where literally relationships were restored because of what they were learning and what they saw. So what I hear consistently from the guys is that they came into prison as it's all about me, never thinking about anybody else, and that goes for a while. But they had the revelation in my program that's like, oh my gosh, it's not about me. Like I need to stop calling home and complaining about all these things. I never inquire about you to my spouse. How are you doing? What's going on
mhm,
with you? What's frustrating you? What kind of pressure are you feeling? How can I support you? Like
mhm,
now we're starting to change that.
mhm, mhm. Right. Yes. And that would make a big difference to their spouse or girlfriend. I mean, yeah, this person was selfish all the time, and now they're thinking of me because yeah, it's a two-way thing. It's not easy to have a spouse or your baby daddy in
Hmm.
in prison. Then you got to do everything for yourself. There's so many things that you have to go through. Sure, they're having a hard time in there and they're locked up and you feel sorry for them, but you're going through it too. So it's great that you're giving them the awareness that a relationship, it affects both people,
Hmm.
and that's how they rebuild their relationship. So that's great. So any advice that you have for people that have a criminal record that's looking for employment? What is it specifically they need to do for to convince an employer to help to hire them?
the first thing is that in my program they actually they do a sort of a strengths analysis, and then they start thinking about what jobs could I be suited for, and then they create a resume uh, while they're there, and then start thinking about that. They practice interviewing and things like that. But I think what's most important to an employer is going to be, obviously admit that they have committed this crime and that they have a record. But on the other hand, I think talking about the programs they took advantage of, and
Mm,
then how they've changed. And the quote that comes to mind, which is to me speaks to me on so many volumes, and I didn't know that until I started doing this work. So Nelson Mandela said, "The man who went to prison is not the man who left as the president of the country."
nice.
And what he did
Nice.
was he said, I mean, he said that, like the first 10 years, it was kind of all about him. But
Hmm.
after that, he started to shift and see something very different. And he saw possibilities where he had never seen that before. And I think that that's what programming does for people. You start to see possibilities when you didn't think there were any.
Hmm. Hmm. I like that. You just expanded my mind on something too, that a lot of people change. Well, I don't know. I don't have statistics, but I mean, the ones that they write movies about anyway, they change because prison allows you to spend a lot of time with yourself, right? So you are able to dissect your personality, dissect your mind. Maybe they give them books to read where maybe before they never read a book. And you also talked about, the chaplain coming in and teaching them about God and spirituality. And you're right. You know, if they don't get caught up in the gangs, then they come out a changed person. So yeah, I mean, and if you teach them how to interview, they can probably, project that in an interview, and someone that's interviewing them would say, yeah, this person is different. Let me at least give them a chance, right? But
Mhm.
that's very good. But if you go in and you talked about something about attitude, if you going with a stinking attitude, thinking they're not going to hire me because I've been to prison, and you go in with a defeative mindset and you've got this attitude, then that would be your experience. But if you soften, you change, you show that how you're changed, show that what skills you bring to the table, that's great because that's, to me, the top two things would be finding housing, employment. The things that I highlighted basically in your book summary, rebuilding relationships. Your program is talking to them about new life skills, but yeah, employment. If we don't want them to go back, they need work. They
So,
need work, right? Hmm.
kind of the title of, obviously the podcast, Transform Your Mind. So, one of the things that I know for sure is 80% for all of us is mindset.
Yes.
And so we go to work on mindset for sure. So I will tell you a great story. So a gentleman who was one of my first mentors trained in the state of Mississippi, he had served an 11-year sentence and he got out, and he'd been out for about a month. And so my contact information in terms of my email address is everywhere. And I always say, hey guys, you can always contact me, not a problem at all. So he did. And he called me and he said, Kim, it's really hard out there. And I said, I know. And so then I said, I asked him a bunch of questions about, have you done this, this, and yes, yeah, 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 yeah. So you can't hear him on the phone with me, but I will. So what I said to him was, if you keep the attitude that you have right now with me, something great is going to happen. I don't know what, but
Oh,
something great.
nice.
And within 24 hours, he had secured a position as an apprentice electrician.
Nice. It's a
And
good
so
trade.
he
Hmm.
worked that and everything else. That was not his dream job. His goal when he got out was to be a CDL driver. So I didn't know, and nor did he at the time. I've learned a whole lot of things that I didn't know then, but you have to have a good driving record for a year before you can actually sit for that test.
Mm.
So he didn't have that, obviously, and so he knew he had to
Right,
put it
something
in
else.
his
Right.
time.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
he did that. Then he ended up doing lawn care services, and then he ended up going to he obviously joined a church, but in his church, they said, we will fund your tuition for the CDL license if you come to mandatory parenting classes. And
Hmm.
he did. Now, he had older kiddos, but he did everything they said. He went
Hmm.
to classes, he took the test, he passed the test, and he's a CDL driver.
Attitude. You're right. You go as high. Your altitude, there was a saying that I used to say a long time ago, see if I remember it. Your attitude determines your altitude. Yep. He had
Every
a great
time.
attitude, and you started with that, right?
Yes,
You've got to come from a humble position and not from somebody owes you something. You know what I mean?
exactly.
If you come from that, do what you need to do, and that's great. And you just mentioned a church. The church would help. The church would help with food. The church would help with maybe housing. And yeah, if you join a church, they would help you. So that's amazing. And you got to do something back. Maybe come in and sweep the floors or do some maintenance. Do something for the church. The church will help you back. So that's great. So we've touched on some great things to, put it out there about what our incarcerated individuals are going through when they come out of prison, because the first thing we always think about is jobs, right? But there's other things. We didn't get to finances because a lot of times, they have no money management skills, right? So your program helps them with that. But all
Yes.
right, so let's talk about your book now. Your book is called From Prison to Possibilities, and I love that, right? You go in, that statement that you just meant, you go in one person and you come out a different person, and you've got all kinds of possibilities now to change your life and to become a contributing member to society, which is another one of my favorite phrases. So tell us about your book. Why did you write it? And what do you want, people to walk away with? I think we probably covered that already.
So basically, a fellow writer who was doing meditation work in a prison in Arizona called me and he knew I was a mentorship expert. And he said, "Hey, Kim, have you ever seen a book around mentorship in prisons?" I said, "No, I've seen a lot of books, but not that." And he said, "Would I be willing to write one?" And I said, "Yes." Intuitively, it felt right to say yes. Then I hung up the phone and thought, what the heck did I just say yes to? Because I don't write about anything I don't know something about. So I went on a 4-year research journey to
Nice.
learn everything I could. Name it, I've probably done it to learn every aspect of, really what it, all of those pieces and the resources and things like that, and meeting people around the country, conferences. I've been to death row. I have gone on several ministries, 3.5 day ministries to be able to see the kind of work that they do and the transformation that they're making. Long story short is I wrote the book because it felt right. And I am always about service and education. So I had a career in hospitality, then I had a career in higher education. So those two things together naturally made sense. And I had already written a book about mentorship. But the truth of the matter is, when I wrote the book, I thought if I can make a difference with one man, it will have been worth it.
One, we have thousands.
Yes, well, we have definitely impacted lots and lots and lots of people for sure. But in
Yeah.
terms of intentionality
Right.
about the motivation to write the book, that's
Hmm.
what it was really about. And now, I go into the prisons. I work in maximum security prison. I actually do the train the trainer program with the men. Spend
Hmm.
about 2.5 days with them, and that they feel confident to be a mentor. So they've done individual activities, they've done writing activities, they've done pair share activities, they've done small group to get them ready for what is it going to be like when I have these four guys in front of me. And yes, I have a curriculum, but they all think differently. They come from different experiences. How do I manage that without getting triggered myself and
Hmm.
support them as a facilitate in this facilitated conversation?
Right. Because the mentors are all also in prison, right?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's really interesting. I wasn't aware of that until recently. I visited a prison for the first time ever because my daughter was speaking in she does this type of work. She was speaking and she didn't think they were going to let me in, but they let me in as her mom, and I'm sitting here with mentors and whatever, and there's this one guy that was the head of the whole. He organized the speech and all that, and he's up there talking, and then he said something about my mom sends me money, and I'm thinking, is he a prisoner? And it blew my mind. And that's when I understood that, yeah, the prisoners are the mentors and they're there or whatever. But so that's pretty good. But what you said about, yeah, they're prisoners, they're helping, but they also have they can be triggered. They also have they're going through the same problems, right? As the other inmates. So
Well, the great thing, peer-led mentorship programs really contribute to reducing recidivism. The research actually says up to 40%, number one. Number two, I work with a lot of guys who have life sentences. So you might say, why would they even want to sign up? Because you know what? When you help somebody else, you have a purpose. That gets them
yes,
out of bed in the morning. They feel good
yes,
about themselves. They're seeing the impact of their work. So, it's a win-win whether they're leaving the prison or whether they're not leaving the prison. It's going to be at the long run, the goal is for it to be safer and for them to build their skill set so that they
right.
can be a better version of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and that's basically what it is. The guy that I was talking about that was in charge apparently had a long sentence, so he was he was found purpose by what he was doing. He was the head of the NWCA chapter in that city or whatever, and he was doing it's doing great work. So, but yeah, it I couldn't wrap my mind around it until he said, "My mom has to send me money" or something like that. He was talking about stuff like that, and I says, "Is he a prisoner?" So yeah, I mean, listen, whenever you can help someone, it really makes a difference in your life because we're here to serve. So yeah, serving, if you're not going to be getting out for a long time and you want to help, and they don't only work with people getting out, they work for facility and services for inmates. So this was this guy was doing, he was doing them both, getting people to come in and speak and encourage them and all the things that he was doing with the program that they had in the prison. So yeah, it was always been my goal to do prison ministry. I've not taken that up, but I have a really soft spirit to someone that is incarcerated. So yeah,
Well, I think we all deserve second chances, and
yeah.
for the most part, most people, most, not all,
Oh,
obviously. I
right.
don't know what
It's always going
percentage
to be
it
a
is.
bad egg, right?
But nobody decided, hey, I'm going to, hey, I really want to get a felony conviction and go to prison. Nobody decides that in the
Right.
moment. Sometimes I always say, and I always say in my first page of my book is wrong, for the grace of God, I'm not in prison, not for something I didn't do. Wrong time, wrong moment, wrong people. In that moment, your
Yeah.
life can change. Now,
Yes.
did that happen for everybody? No, of course not. But at the same time, there are lots of stories where in that moment they made a decision
Yeah.
or didn't make a decision,
Right.
and then the results are paying for that right
Yeah.
there.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So I feel really badly for them, to be quite honest. So that's great. So, all right, Dr. Kim, this has been an illuminating conversation. I hope that my listeners are, now aware of some of the challenges of incarcerated people, and if they know someone that they can offer something as simple as a cell phone, help them get a Gmail account or something, awareness. So it's great. So, all right, yeah. So, and if you can pick up a copy of Kim's book and share it with someone that you think would benefit from this information. So, tell us how anyone can get in touch with you, Kim. Give me your website, social
Mhm.
media handles, and of course, your book is on Amazon, right?
My book is definitely on Amazon, and my website is Dr. Nugent Speaks. So that's Dr. Nugent, Nugent, speaks.com. And that's a great way to follow up. So, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. I post weekly, a blog, and then I'm also on Facebook and I'm also on Instagram and Twitter.
What's your handle?
And now you would ask me such a thing.
We just look up your name, I guess it'll come up.
Yeah, if they just put in Kim S. Nugent, it'll
Right.
come up.
It will come up. Right. Just putting your name right. Okay. Not a problem. All right. Well, I will have a summary of my conversation to Dr. Kim Nugent on the show page. which is myhelps.us. I'll link out to her book. I will link out to some of the resources that she mentioned during the interview, and so that you can just click the link and get that. And I also find her Instagram handle and link out to it. That's the one I use, and link out to it. And that's where most people hang out these days, Instagram. Yeah, so thank you for being on the show, Dr. Kim, and thank you for sharing this valuable information. It's kind of niche, but still, valuable. So as we wrap up, any last words?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. There's just so many opportunities for your audience to get involved in some way. You mentioned a cell phone or, an email address or something else. I am quite certain that you have many employers out there that haven't even thought about becoming a second chance employer. But honestly, there's so much talent inside prisons and there's so many leadership skills. And if a guy has really gone through, programming, they have really transformed their lives. And so, really, the opportunity to give them a chance is what I would highly recommend.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I didn't even think of that one. But yeah, yeah, employers are listening for sure. Yeah, give someone a second chance. Definitely. You'll be doing so much to the community by helping them not rescind back into prison. They need money. So that is really good. And you're right. There's a lot of transformation that happens and you can actually see it, right? Yep. So
Yes,
that's amazing. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Author's Corner. Today I was speaking to Dr. Kim Nugent, author of From Prison to Possibilities. Definitely pick up a copy of her book and give it to someone that can use the information. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for being on the show. Until next time, namaste.
namaste.